Good morning. I'm Marinette Liberman, and this morning I like to evaluate our finances, and I like to just talk to you as I'm working on it. So that's the end of 2019, and I'm just trying to compare my numbers here to see how we did. So that's the same thing you should be doing. You need to have a spreadsheet to track your expenses if you can, so that throughout the year you track those expenses, and then you go back and see and compare your expenses to your income to see how much you spend you spend throughout the year. So here I hid some of the bottom of the spreadsheet. So our irregular expenses are here, but I'm just going to hide it first so that I can have room to work with. So I'm going to compare our expenses. I'm going to do multiple comparisons here, but the first one will be to compare our costs. I like to call it fixed costs. And our fixed costs include our mortgage, minimum, cable, internet, phone, trash, gas, utilities, electricity, car gas, bus tickets, groceries, charities or donations, allowances, and credit card. So all those total to what I'm calling total fixed expenses. And the bottom portion that I call variable expenses are the extra that we pay toward the mortgage, our expenses that came from our saving. That's for the irregular expenses that we save for, and the extra we pay toward the credit cards. And then we have investment toward our businesses or brokerage account. So the first things I will do here, I think I'll go down a little bit. So the first things I will do, let me open it again. 59, I think I did it well. So what I'm going to do first is pretty much I'm going to call it living expenses, or I'm going to just say fixed expenses to income ratio. And let me see if I can freeze the top section here so that we can see our month. We have in fact, if I can freeze all of that, let's see here, you'll go to view, freeze panel, and let's see that will work. Yeah, it worked. So when I go to the right, the spreadsheet, I have December, January on the far right. So my January will be our expenses, our fixed expenses, which is 2043, divided by our income of 4,968, and I can put the result as a percentage. So that's 41%. I can make it. So our expenses for the month of January is 41%, 41.13% of our income. Let me highlight our fixed expenses. The income, the total combined income is the one in pink. Should I say pink? I don't mean, yeah, whatever that color is. So that's the combined income. And now our fixed expenses, we can have that in a cool color. And right now using the blue, probably something light. So we are going to divide our fixed expenses by fixed expenses divided by the combined income. So I put one down, and if I drag it across, you should be able to tell me how we did all the way to December. And as you can see here, and that's my result here. And we can put that in a color as well. Why not? So our fixed expenses to income ratio for January is 41.13%, February 41.11%, March 32.81%, April 43.39%, May 15.42%, June 32.34%, July 40.57%, August 38.18%. So that, what does those numbers mean, those percentage mean? It just means that we spent, for example, for August, we spent 38% of our income on our living expenses. September 47.49%, August 45.33%, November 51.82%, December 38.95%. So in December we spent 38.95% of our income. So we brought in $5,334.68, and our expenses, fixed expenses, including minimum mortgage and all our bills, including minimum credit cards, total to $2,077.61. Now let's what the average for the year. So that will be equal average. So if we take the average of the whole year, we live on 39.4% of our income for this year, 2019. We brought home $61,107.50, and we spent $25,762.07. So that's 39% of our income. Our next things that we will consider here will be how much we paid toward our principal, our mortgage principal, throughout the year. So as you can see in the variable section, we have mortgage extra. That's the additional principal that we pay every month. So that's there. We are going to compare that to our combined income. We are not even talking about the minimum principal that we have, like in every minimum mortgage due a month, there is a minimum principal in it. I'm not even talking about that yet. Just what we pay extra toward our mortgage and apply it toward our principal. So we are going to see additional principal to income ratio and see how we did. So that will be our mortgage extra that we pay every month. January was 1,700, 17.19 divided by our combined income of 4,968.15. So we pay 35%. Let me make that in percentage here. And increase it. Okay, so when we take our additional principal, now the minimum principal in the mortgage due every month, but the additional principal that we paid, when we take that and divide it by the combined income, my husband and I's income, that's 35% of our income, or 34.56% that we pay toward our principal in January. And if we do that for the whole year, February we pay 33%, 33.67% of our income toward our principal, as additional principal for our house. And March, it was 31.92% of our income. April, 40.95% of our income went to our mortgage extra. May, 76% of our income went to our mortgage extra. And the reason why it was high in May is because we got a tax return and we applied that toward the mortgage as well. June, we apply 47% of our income, 48% of our income toward additional principal. July, we apply 38% of our income toward additional principal. In August, we apply 40% of our income toward additional principal. September, we apply 39% of our income toward additional principal. October, we apply 59% of our income toward additional principal. November, we apply 45% of our income toward additional principal, and December we apply 34.60% of our income toward additional principal. And in average, throughout this year, we apply 43% of our income toward our additional principal. So that's how we spent our money in 2019. We lived in average on 39%, and that includes the minimum mortgage that we paid as well. And then we pay an additional of 43% of our income to our mortgage and apply it toward the principal. So let's go back and see what else we can evaluate here with our spreadsheet. That's why I like to track all our expenses throughout the year. Let's compare how much of our income that we apply toward our business or we invest in brokerage account, why not? So investment to income ratio. So investment to income ratio. And if we go up a little bit, that's down here. Right before balance, we see investment. So we'll take that divided by our combined income. So that would be in January 622.85 divided by our combined income of 4,900. So that gave us about 12%. And if I copy the formula and paste it all through the month, we can see that we invest either in our businesses or into the stock market in January, February, March, April, May, June, July, but not August, September, or October. And then we did a little bit in November, a little bit in December. So 12% in January, 12% or 13% in February, 27% in March, 9% in April, 3% or 4% in May, 8% in June, 10% in July, 0% in August, 0% in September, 0% in October, 2% in November, and about 3% in December. So in average, we invested about 7% of our income toward our businesses or into the stock market. And I know that is more toward one of our business. We have a rental property that we spend a little bit to maintain until we save enough to remodel and put it on the market for rent. So as you can see, that's pretty much the breakdown of our income, how we spend it throughout the year. And there are so many things you can do with this spreadsheet, but it's good at the end of the year or periodically to just calculate how much you have been spending versus how much you are making. So that will help you to see what you need to improve. And if we want to go even further and compare our living expenses without the mortgage, just our living expenses to our income, that would be living expenses to income ratio. And our living expenses to income ratio is, because we have, what I was thinking about doing is including our expenses from saving, like those irregular expenses that we had to pay for throughout the year. We save for those expenses. It's not a regular monthly expenses, but they are not regular monthly expenses, but they do incur. So I'm going to include that in it as well. And you'll see on row 26, expenses from saving. So I'm going to include that, because when you have a house, things will break and you'll fix it. So let's include that and see how it is. Or I can even, the first time I will just do the monthly expenses, and then I will include that as well. So living expenses without irregular expenses or unexpected or unplanned expenses included. So that will be the sum of let's see if I'll be able to locate them all here easily. So I'm going to include everything but not the mortgage. So that would be, don't know if you are able to see that, but all the way down here without the minimum mortgage. And that amount divided by our combined income is, yeah, let's do that and see. So that's 23%. So pretty much what I'm talking about is our living expenses, all the bills without the minimum mortgage, and divided by our combined income. And as you can see, our living expenses is 23% of our income. That include gas, utility, gas, electricity, water, car gas, bus ticket, donation, allowances. So February, it was 23% of our income, April 18%, March 18%, April 26%, May 8 or 9%, June 16 or 17%, July 22%, August 20%, September 17%, October 22%, November 22%, December 16%. So in average, we spend 20% of our income on our living expenses. We spend 43% on our mortgage principal, extra, and what if we include in our expenses our irregular expenses or unexpected expenses? So living expenses, I'm just going to call it irregular expenses to income ratio, and that will be the sum of even in our living expenses, I include the credit card as well. So that will be the sum of expenses right here, and our living expenses without the minimum mortgage. Divided by our income. And I'll just find the percentage on that and try to have it with 2 decimal. So that's 28% in December. So our living expenses was 17%, but with unplanned expenses that came out of our saving, it was up to 28%. And as you can see, when we include our expenses from our saving account, those unplanned expenses, when we included, it is a few percent higher. So in average, we spent 25% of our income on our living expenses and unplanned expenses. So that's how I like to analyze my spending to see what I need to improve. And as you can see, we have a credit card that we are trying to pay off, so that increase our living expenses a little bit. But now that I'm looking at the average for the whole year in that section, and I'm comparing those ratios, I see that we are paying a lot toward our principal and our fixed income. I will go more with our living expenses and regular expenses. So the income ratio is 25% of our income, and we are paying 43% of our income toward our mortgage to pay off, and that does not even include the minimum mortgage. So if we want to see how much the things with our mortgage is, it has the minimum, it has, let me see here. One thing I could do as well is to see how much we are paying out of our income, how much we are paying toward the principal. And it's not it's not really something I really want to track, but we can still do that. But the thing is, here we are tracking the mortgage, the minimum mortgage as a whole here, that includes interest and all that. But I have a spreadsheet, I have a sheet that I have just for mortgage that track all the minimum, that break down the minimum and the additional principal. And I can add combined income here, combined income, and pull it from the other spreadsheet. So December, that's that, and that's what I like to use, this spreadsheet, and I have it on my website. You can visit it so that you can download it and just make some adjustment to it to start tracking your expenses. And as you can see here, I have my combined income here with my husband, and I have our mortgage payment here. So let's see how much we pay to our principal compared to our income. So principal with a minimum or extra to income ratio. So that would be the sum of the minimum right there and the additional principal that we paid divided by our combined income. And I can just apply the percentage on that. So you can see we pay 41.79% of our income toward our principal. And in November we pay 53%, in October 68%, September 44%, August 47%, July 45%, June 53%, May 78%, April 46%, March 36%, February 39%, and I believe January is pretty much 40%. So if we calculate the average, how much we pay to our principal, minimum and extra, that will be the average of the whole year. And that's 49.30%. We pay a little bit below 50% of our income toward our principals. And as you can see here, we pay $33,860.05 a year toward the minimum principal, and then we pay $3,669.38 in addition to our principal as well for the whole year. So that's a total of $3,033,000. That's a total of $37,529.43 that we paid toward our principal. And we pay $3,060 toward our interest throughout the year. So when you have the chance to pay your mortgage off, when you have enough left in your income, you can apply toward your mortgage. I would suggest you do that, you pay it off. At least you can sleep at night knowing that you have a shelter over your head. You know, you have a roof over your head and your children's head, your family's head, and not worried about it. If you are wondering whether you should invest or paying off your house, if the house is not too expensive, it's just better you pay off. If you have an expensive house, you might look at leasing or renting few rooms in it so that you can use those extra rents toward the additional principal, you know, to just pay off. And as you can see, I have the mortgage, I have our amortization schedule here, and you can see that the interest for the first payment number 1, the first payment, the interest is $415 compared to the principal $161. So that is more than 3 times, should I say, the interest is more than 3 times or close to 3 times the principal. That's how much interest they are charging you on your house. By the time you pay off, you could easily be, depending on the amount of the mortgage, you could easily purchase one house for yourself and 2 houses to the bank. So you are paying 3 times, up to 3 times the cost of the house by preferring to invest your money thinking you'll earn more on the stock market versus paying your house off. And don't be renovating your house if you have not paid off. Something breaks, take your time, fix it the right way. Hire somebody to do it for you if you cannot do it yourself. Just profit and do it. Buy the best items to fix it. But don't renovate the house if it's not necessary, because you'll just be increasing the value of the house for investors, that those people that you borrow their money, you know, to purchase it, or you'll be just improving it for the bank. That's why those banks, they want you to have a home equity loan to remodel it, because you are just you are a renter. The bank is your landlord, but you have the chance to improve the house for them. So until you pay off, don't be spending your money on those renovations. It's not necessary. Pour your energy toward paying it off so that you can start investing in the stock market or in real estate. Thank you for watching. I'm Nina from Nina Soap, and I will invite you to visit our YouTube channel, to subscribe and ring the bell so that when we post new videos, you'll be notified. Thank you.